Sorry. So it's an honor for me to actually get a chance to kind of present and share. As Melissa, all right, so let's start with two things. I went to Kentucky State University, not Kent State. I know they had the same kind of letters, but it's not her fault. It's probably somebody did a, what's it called in the bio, meaning me, because I wrote my own bio. And as she mentioned, this is actually, today marks the 20-year anniversary of me becoming a DJ. So it's and I'm doing all this while I'm trying to get this camera to kick on. So I say that, all that to say that the things I'm going to share and talk about are all kind of rooted in that context. Yeah, the remote for the camera's not working, I apologize. So everything I talk about today is going to be rooted in that context of kind of my journey, in the sense of it's not really about me, but I want to share these things with you because at least 20 years of experience, research, failures, successes show that they work.
DJ Krate Digga.
So when I talk about the things that, and you're going to hear these little sound effects because, you know, that's what I do as a DJ. So we're going to have fun with those. When I was got the opportunity to share, it wasn't about what I was going to talk about, but it was about what I'm not going to talk about because I can't talk about everything. So when we talk about the theme of manifest, the theme of kind of bringing life to what it is you do, productivity, I understood that the best way for me to present that is to change manifest from a word to an acronym. All right, so as we move through, we're going to have 8 basic points or 8 basic concepts that we're going to follow to help move us from where we are now, whatever space or context that is, to a higher level of capacity, productivity, self-sufficiency. Manifest M. First and foremost, my man Dylan's here in the room, you got to make it. Whatever it is that you do, you have to make it. So if you sing, you got to sing. If you DJ, you got to spin. If you create bowls, you have to create bowls. And you can't just do it once, or you can't just hang around the people who do it, or you can't just get on IG or Twitter and take the title, but you have to physically do whatever it is that your creative outlet is, all right? So for me, let's go back 20 years. On the left side, that is one picture of the beautiful campus of Kentucky State University in Frankfort, Kentucky. That little brown building on the right is the student center. We had some crazy, excellent experiences in the ballroom on the top floor. And on that left side, there's a building right behind that administrative building known as Bell Gym. And the right side of that picture is inside of Bell Gym where, once again, I had some great times, some great experiences. And I was physically doing what it is that my craft called me to do. I wasn't just hanging out with the DJs. I wasn't just around, but I was physically putting in the time, putting in the effort, putting in the work to actually make music. Manifest A, you have to now apply your craft. So once you've done it, you have to do it again and again and again. With that being said, that consistency has to fall in context. So as a singer, I don't expect you to put out a new song every day. I suggest you don't put out a new song every day. But you can't just say I'm a singer, put out a song in January, and then disappear until October. You have to be engaged. Whether that means I'm on IG just saying, hey, I'm working on this, or show kind of this is what my vocal warm-up routine is, or I'm going to open mics, or I'm booking shows, or I'm in the studio and I'm taking pictures to show that I'm actively doing whatever it is I do. As a DJ, there was a time throughout my career where I used to do weekly mixes for this group known as the Urban Star online magazine. And I learned that my consistency with putting out a new mix every week, while people enjoyed it, it wasn't to my best interest, because one week wasn't enough for people to enjoy what it is I was putting out. I was chopping the shelf life of my projects off. So make sure your consistency is in the context of what it is you do. So if you're an academic, you have to take time to research, to interview, to interact, to read, to edit. So be contextual in that consistency. These are just a couple of images of that consistency over the past 20 years. So I've done shows with myself, with DJ Cruz, J Electronica, Music Soul Child, Brand Nubian. We'll talk about it a little later, but I was able to executive produce a documentary this year. So this is just kind of, over the 20 years, I haven't had any major time lapses where I wasn't physically engaged with my craft. Manifest in, negotiate. Now, to be very honest, there's going to be times where you get less than what you deserve, less than what you're worth. But there's going to be those times where when someone comes to you and say, hey, I need you to do this for me, we want to hire you, we can pay A, B, and C. You're like, hey, I would love that opportunity, but for what you're asking me to do, I need D, E, and F. So that negotiation can work both ways. So why we have to negotiate? It allows us to gain access, allows us to then show value once we have our foot in the door, and then it allows us to leverage those assets on the backside. So in Marshall, we were talking about 2002, 2003 when you were a CCAD, when you first started? That was a long time ago, sorry. So when I first met Marshall, I was DJing on Wednesday and Thursday nights at a spot called Snaps and Taps here in Columbus, Ohio. Historic venue, and actually they're working on a documentary for it today, so, excuse me, not today, but in the process of working on a documentary for it. Some of those nights, even when we had a great turnout, I would DJ for 4 hours and I would get paid $20, $25. That was not about my worth. That was not about my skill set. It was about there's only so much money that was made. And there was only, if you only make A, B, and C, you can only pay out A, B, and C. But I didn't say I'm not going to take this gig because it only pays $20 when I had to lug all my gear down this iron stairwell from my apartment, loaded into this old Plymouth. I had like a Dodge Caravan or something. You know, the ones with the wood panel on the side? So we're talking about like 2001, 2002. And then I had to lug all my records down. At the time, I didn't have separate cases. So for anybody who knows anything about DJs, a lot of times we have cases that carry, hand case carries what, 50, 60 records, give or take? All right, so I didn't have one of those. I had a big chest, like a Foot Locker, that carried 200 records. So I had to take this big chest down these 20 steps. They were like a fire escape every week, and do these gigs at Snaps and Taps. I did them because they gave me access to people and ears that I didn't have. And once I got that access, I showed my value, and it led to me doing the Red Zone, which led to me doing Cove, which led to me doing concerts, which led to me. So as you see, I was able to negotiate to now when people come to me and say, hey, we need you to do this and that, they don't tell me what they're going to pay as much as ask me what is it going to cost for me to get you to do this, this, and that. Manifest I, inclusion. You got to bring other people with you. That, again, is contextual. It's not just about I have this following that I bring to my events and I can get this crowd. That's cool, it helps, but I'm talking about on a creative plane, you have to move with, bring people with, follow the draft of those who are working in a similar space, a similar force, a similar field, a similar momentum. So as a creative, sometimes that means direct collaborations. So in college, I helped form a DJ crew. Later on in the mid-2000s, I helped form another DJ crew. Also, there's times where I work with artists who may not be doing the same thing I'm doing, but the energy, the network, the scope of what they do is similar enough where we can kind of link arms and work together and move forward as a united front. So when we interact with people, we can once again leverage ourselves to say, hey, it's not just this one guy out here on an island doing this. This is a new movement. There is a group of creatives who are all coming forward with this energy, and it behooves you to get on board now before they move somewhere else. All right? So bring other people with you. Manifest F, freely give. You have to get to the point where, once again contextually, you give of yourself in a creative capacity with no expectation of getting anything in return. No strings attached, no quid pro quo, no if I do this for you, then you just have to give for the sake of giving. Why? It builds appreciation, it builds support, it builds awareness, and it builds clout. And sometimes it just makes you feel good. Now, I don't expect you to go out, spend $1,000 and get materials together and build this great masterpiece and just give it to somebody. That's not what I'm saying. But if you have 10 years of experience doing design work, find an hour of your time to talk to other young designers, to do volunteering, after-school programming. Find programs around you or individuals around you and interact with them so you can give your experience, your failures, your successes, and share with them and build community in whatever context that works for you. Manifest-E, experiment. You got to try new things. And then add what works to what got you here. So for me, I was always very much a very traditional DJ. I was all about 2 turntables, a mixer, and my cases of records. There came a time where I got booked to do a gig. I had to fly to the venue. And what I paid to get all of my music to that venue was more than what I got paid to do the actual gig. No one wants to pay to go to work. At that point, I understood that I had to make a change that I had been fighting for months. So I moved from being analog only, which means physical vinyl, to incorporating a laptop. For me, it wasn't a big deal because the laptop didn't do any work for me. I still had to physically put the music together. I had to do everything that I was doing before. But now instead of having, at sometimes 6 cases plus a backpack of music, I had 4,000, 5,000 songs at my disposal at any time. All right? In 2012-ish, I finally told myself, my grandfather, who had passed away years before that, had left me his guitar. And I told myself, I need to pick up the guitar and learn how to at least move around the guitar. I then started to implement that in some of my production, and while I don't ever consider myself a guitar player, it's something that I was able to add on and add value to what I was doing. 2013, I added Ableton to my kind of software repertoire, so now I was able to DJ the way I had been DJing and then incorporate a whole nother level of creativity into what I was doing. 2015, I started adding the visual elements to what I'm doing, which led to me doing some different things. I don't know who all saw the performance at Holler earlier this year, so things like that. I was able to experiment, try different things, and add them to what I was already doing. I didn't just drop DJing and turn into a piano player. I'm not saying you have to reinvent yourself in that way, but add on to what you're doing. It's kind of like adding tools to your toolbox. Picture on the left is Watu Utungo, one of the groups that I perform with. We actually were honored to be part of the backstage season a couple years ago. Some other promos, you see me with a guitar looking like I know what I'm doing, and I was really kind of faking it. I wasn't really faking it, but the picture gives me more credit than I understand I get. Krate Day. So that's a documentary that I was able to, had the opportunity to executive produce this year. My man Charles Ewing is the director. So what started out as me just having a gig, him following me to get footage that was going to go up on my website or whatever, turned into, at the end of the day, we had so much value in the footage that it had to be something bigger than just something we threw online. So Krate Day, which is available on the website that I have, and some of you guys have the flyers, kratedigga.com/ and then if you go to the website, there's tabs. On the back of that promo flyer that you have, the website is there. But Krate Day is an example of how me kind of experimenting and adding on and taking the next step and pushing things to the next level led to an opportunity that I at no point ever set out to become an executive producer of a documentary. But here I am. Manifest-E, strategy. Create and implement Act 2. Now, when I first started putting this slide together, I was like, you got to have your plan B. You got to have, and I was like, that's going to be taken the wrong way. So I had to flip it. Some of you guys got the joke. Cool. For those, it'll be here later. It'll show up with dinner. Don't worry about it. Create and implement your Act 2. I'm not talking about if what you're doing doesn't work. I'm not talking about doing something else. I'm talking about the next page. So I've had 20 years experience as a DJ. I can just DJ for the next 20 years, but that doesn't really serve me any real purpose. So I'm implementing my Act 2. In part, that means, specifically in 2017, I've intentionally moved into a space where I'm taking my experiences, my successes, my failures more so than my successes, but just what I can share and give to those who are interested in hearing it or can relate to it and make it relevant. I'm putting that out there, all right? So I've had the opportunity to present to the Lincoln Theater's Artist Incubation Program, making M.A.N.I.F.E.S.T a couple weeks ago. Honored to be here today. But those are just three examples of how I'm going from being a DJ, a musician, an instructor, a producer, and all these other things that I do, and now I'm taking all of those experiences and opportunities and thoughts and interactions that I've had, and I'm putting it out there for everybody else who can take something from them to take something from them. M.A.N.I.F.E.S.T is your transition. You got to define your legacy. Now, when I talk about transition, I very much mean in one context of it, when you are no longer on this earth. At some point, we're all going to be gone. Hopefully later than sooner, but at some point, we're all going to be gone. And I believe we all want people to have an image and a remembrance of us that it's not about, oh, he was a cool guy, or she was so beautiful, or he had so much money, but it's about what it is that we did for people around us, how we made them feel, what we gave to our community, our family. So it's not just a kind of luck of the draw or a crapshoot when it comes to your legacy. There is no reason why, without intentional action, intentional thought, that we can't each define our own legacy. So, we talk about Miles Davis, Coltrane, Michael Jackson, Prince. They define their legacy. Marshall Shorts, Corey Favor, Kendrick Lamar, Jay Rawls. And the list goes on, whether past, present. You can define your own legacy, but it starts with you sitting down and telling yourself, what do I want my legacy to be? Then, with every other opportunity that comes before you, you can say, does this lead me down the path of the legacy that I want to leave? Or does this divert me from that path? Spoke about the documentary that I was able to executive produce. I know it's kind of hard to see. Well, not so much me because my big head is right up front. But the guy with the blue hat, that's Grandmaster Flash, like the Grandmaster Flash. So when we talk about defining legacy, for me, what's kind of makes this interesting / funny, ironic is I'm a DJ, been a DJ for 20 years, but almost none of what I've been able to do with my career would have been possible if it wasn't for that man and what he did both for the culture of hip-hop, culture of DJing specifically, and not just from a creative standpoint, but from a technical standpoint. Like the mixer, as we know it, basically is his creation. So understand that you have the power to define your own legacy. Once again, manifest. You got to make it. You got to apply the craft. You got to negotiate. Make sure you bring people with you. Work inclusion. All right? You got to freely give. You got to experiment. You got to strategize. And then think about transitioning from this stage to the next stage. So once again, I want to thank you guys for your time. I want to thank Marshall, Corey, and the CCF 6 crew. And I am DJ Krate Digga, the Mighty Sound Champion crew. You can catch me online, kratedigga.com. I'm on IG, Facebook, what else is there? Twitter, basically Krate Digga, KrateDigga. Thank you.
Any questions for Krate?
It's none of your business. No, I'm joking. It's kind of, it has a couple different tiers. So first and foremost, I want people to, like when I'm gone, I want people to really believe that I was dedicated to my creative vision. And it wasn't out of selfishness. It wasn't out of ego. It was kind of out of accepting to an extent, like, this is my calling. With that means a lot of time with my family is gone. Like we talk about, Gladwell talks about those 10,000 hours of becoming a master. Like those aren't 10,000 hours that just drop out the sky because we don't have nothing else to do. Those are 10,000 hours that come away from Thanksgiving days when the rest of my family is traveling. I got a gig Thanksgiving night or the day after. Or New Year's Eve. So I'm going to keep it brief, but my oldest child, my daughter, should be 18 in a few weeks. Actually, sooner than that. But I started DJing in 97. She was born in 99. We've only had one New Year's Eve together, and that was New Year's Eve 99 going into 2000. I physically had to work every New Year's Eve since. So just little things like that, which may not be a little thing to other folks, but for me, that's one thing that I had to an extent, had to kind of sacrifice or negotiate in my life because my calling and my path and what it was I was trying to accomplish required me to make those tough choices. But with all the success that I have, I want people to believe that I was still willing to give back. I was still approachable. I still believed in interacting and building. So it wasn't about a big grab for me. Anything that I got, I try to find ways to pull other people into.